Hi, and welcome to Wrong Way! And today, we're going to disassemble the Kingsong S22 Pro and check for its durability and quality. So, let me tell you more about it.
Wrong way.
Now, I did already do a Kingsong S22 teardown before, so in this video I'll try to show you what changed in the Pro model and maybe show some info that I did not include in the last video. 2 Cells 1 Pack also made a tire change and slider change video, so feel free to check it out as well. Big thanks to my e-wheel for providing me this wheel for testing purposes, and let's get on with it! And a seat mounting option is the first thing that changed in the Pro model. Now we have Velcro mounted to the seat, well, if it sticks. After a while it tends to not stick to the seat anymore and then you have to peel it off. Still a bit nicer to have Velcro than double-sided tape on the seat. Once I remove the front pads, it's also pretty comfortable to sit on it. You can still change the geometry of the suspension, but one thing to note here that I left out in the last teardown is that if you choose a wider tire, you won't be able to access all of the geometry options. Next, it's time to remove the side fairings by NyloNove. They are a necessity for me because otherwise I can't mount pads in a comfortable way on this wheel. Kingsong still does provide some plastic elements that work well with their stock pads, however they do not seem to hold well with usual 3D printed pads. In the back you can see several screws that hold the shock and the geometry in place. Those can break, especially if you don't tighten them. If you do big jumps and heavy off-roading, it's best to preemptively change them for aftermarket bolts and use Loctite. By the way, big shout out to Serge for helping me make this video. Now we will remove 2 screws on the top which hold the red top cover in place. Nothing changed here. And now it's time to remove another set of hex screws that hold the top motherboard compartment in place. And a side note here, once I was jumping a S22 Pro from Bonheur-sur-Seine and I bottomed out the suspension, I landed too early. And this made the screw break on this top cover. My hypothesis here is that Kingsong engineers didn't account for how long the new sliders are and that in case of a bottoming out of the suspension, the sliders push out into the motherboard cover. Now, I don't know which batch it is and if every wheel has that problem, but let me know in the comments if you had something similar to this. Now it's time to lift up the top cover and we can see some nice thermal paste on the Kingsong S22 Pro. The battery connectors are nice, XT90s, as well as communication wires. It's amazing that the S22 Pro has a smart BMS with temperature sensors and you can check the individual voltages of each set. Really nice, and this gives me quite a bit of peace of mind. It is still limited though, there is no active cell balancing and other parameters which are available on usual e-bike smart BMSs. And there's also a necessary motor temperature sensor, which Bigot and veteran wheels still don't have until this day. Flipping the motherboard cover reveals silicone which is damaged close to the phase wires. You have to really watch out for that because otherwise water can come in directly into the motherboard and phase wire area. I think they just cheaped out on the silicone, or maybe it just needs to be replaced every once in a while. And what makes it even worse is that the motherboard compartment and the battery compartment is not sealed and separated from one another. So if water comes into the motherboard compartment, it can also get into the battery. And that is really bad. With the phase wires and the red cover removed, we can take a glimpse at the phase wire area. This is directly a motherboard right there. So, as said, sealing this off is really crucial. It's also crucial to always close the charge ports as you can see, they are not perfectly sealed when open. Now I'll show you the power on and off button, which is both ingenious and scary at the same time. It's a plastic button with a micro rod that hits directly into the motherboard area. So again, this is not sealed, this is just plastic on metal and water can come in through there. Now it's not likely for water to get in when the wheel is upright, but under the right or wrong conditions, if the wheel would be tilted upside down or to the side or a specific stream of water would hit it, things can become not nice. Now it's time to remove Phillips screws that hold the plastic cover to the main metal heatsink cover thing in place. There's also a bit of a rubber gasket in this area. Good to see. I was riding this wheel in rain and it seems to be alright. However, I do not like how out there the motherboard is. It's way better separated on InMotion wheels. And can we please get an IP rating and warranty for water resistance? Like, we do ride those things in rain, even if we don't want to. Sometimes rain just happens if you're riding out there. Looking around the motherboard, it seems to be the exact same thing as on the S22. Even the motherboard says S20 1st of May or 5th of January 2022. We'll take a look at the high power MOSFETs in a bit. The beeper is located in the middle. It's not that well audible on the wheel, it could be better positioned, and it's just held there by double-sided tape. It's not even screwed in to the motherboard area. Now, to remove the motherboard from the heatsink, we will unscrew all of the MOSFET screws on the motherboard. You will also need to lift the capacitor a bit. Those screws, like a lot of other screws on the S22 as well, are best removed by first unscrewing them by hand, and then you can use a power tool. Underneath the motherboard, we can take a peek at the thermal paste. And here you can see those TO247 MOSFETs. And to my knowledge, this is the exact same thing as from the beginning of the S22. So nothing changed here. I guess the power comes mostly from the motor with 3mm wider magnets on it. The datasheet also says that those MOSFETs go up to 125 volts and the S22 goes up to 126. Next, I really wanted to show you what's underneath the charge ports, and to my surprise, the charge ports are the exact same thing as the outside charge ports on other wheels, with their cover dangling out there. This could definitely look better. Alright, now it will be time to look at the aftermarket honing rollers and the wheels motor itself. I have to give credit to Kingsong here. If you just remove the screws here on the top from the geometry, it's very easy to slide out the motor and rollers from the main shell of the wheel. This wheel has over 1,000 kilometers of painful heavy off-roading and jumps, and I did mount those rollers the wrong way. And this is how they should be facing, and that is also why we are doing this teardown. We need to replace the arrangement of those rollers. And sadly, we did find about 4 wheels that were broken, but this might be also due to this alignment, the wrong alignment that we chose for those rollers. I did get some spare rollers in the package, so it was easy enough to replace them. Next up, I wanted to see if anything changed in the battery compartment. It's relatively easy to access the battery, but the screws in choice here, like every screw on the S22, are small and brittle. Especially when removing the motor screws, you need to be really careful not to break the thread. The battery cover does have a rubber gasket, which is great to see. And sliding out the battery was a bit more difficult than I expected. It felt a bit stuck. It's very snug in place, which is of course good, up to a point where we needed to use a bit of force to take the unit out. We managed to do it though. And sadly, the first glimpse of the battery still does show us that there is no shrink wrap around the battery. Just remove the battery from the wheel, and here I can see the batteries that are inside. Is it here?
You can like see LT, if you know.
Yeah,
This must be like
LG M50 LT.
It's
on the top, you can barely see it. Right? Yeah, there, LT.
LT.
Anyways, the biggest downside of this battery is that it's not sealed, so any water that could potentially come in, it will just corrode the battery. It's a potential fire hazard. So it's...
Oh, let's throw it away.
It's rather terrible. It's nice to see like how this looks like.
Oh, and they actually did cover it up before everything was visible here. Now they have some additional tape here underneath. These are the charging MOSFETs, I guess, right? These ones?
Yep. The label turns red when it meets water. And from the side, like, it's a little bit red.
Oh, here, yeah, it is actually a little bit red.
Maybe because it like scratched. No. Oh, maybe it's like on the other side it's
Then
red.
we will just like getting it out from the battery
Yeah,
pack,
yeah.
I think.
But yeah, in any ways, to make this wheel safer, a lot safer, you would need to just put shrink wrap around it, like every other wheel.
horrible.
Let's put it back.
Yeah.
With that said, the main chassis of the wheel is still pretty sturdy and it still has the blinded by the lights in the front. Putting everything back together wasn't too difficult, and in general, if the screws don't break, this wheel is a relatively easy wheel to disassemble and assemble. It could be a lot better with the tire change, but it's not too bad. And make sure to subscribe in order to not miss out on the main review of the S22 Pro.
So, that's messed up actually. That's messed up, dude. It's so scratched up.
So if you're still here, leave a like on the video, subscribe to see more content like this. I'll see you in the next video. See you soon. And huge thanks to my YouTube supporters and Patreon supporters. This support means the world to me. Thank you.